What's up, everybody? I am here with Jen Carvalho and TJ Woodward at the end of the first annual Emergence Conference, and I thought the three of us would spend a little bit of time and just talk about the day. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. What a great day.
It was an amazing day.
Yeah.
Amazing. TJ, what did you think about the conference, man?
I mean, it surpassed any expectation I had in terms of really the intention of the conference. I know the three of us had was really about connection and community, and it was absolutely a day filled with that. So incredibly grateful. The speakers were amazing, but I think what really was phenomenal is seeing people connect in a really deep way.
Mm-hmm. Jen, did you feel that, the connection?
The connection was so palpable in this room today. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, we go to lots of conferences and events, and people are kind of tuning in and tuning out, and they're on their phone, and they're walking in and out of the room. Today, everybody was rapt. Like they were all focused on the speaker and then focused on each other during the breaks, which was really powerful. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was palpable.
Yeah, and I think, the three of us, what's coming to mind for me is that when we envisioned the conference, we talked about wanting to bring people together and talk about emerging themes and modalities and treatment, but also really just emerging from everything that came along with COVID-19 and the shelter in place. And I don't know about you guys, but I could feel the joy that people were in just to be together. Did you guys feel that?
100%. I mean, that seemed to be one of the predominant conversations is that we are emerging out of this, and we're also, as an industry, asking the question, how can we serve all the people in need? Mm-hmm. And so coming together and supporting each other in this way, I think was phenomenal. I know for me, I feel recharged, and that to me is really, if nothing else, if we provided a place where people can come, drop in and recharge, that in itself is the greatest gift.
Amen. So let me ask you guys this. Did you have any particular moments that stood out as, big moments of, I don't want to say like favorite moments, but like maybe some highlights from the day?
There were a series of moments that really made me proud to have collaborated with you two for Emergence. One of the things that I loved was that we had a lot of young professionals in the room, and they were asking really fabulous questions. They were asking probing questions. They were focused on the innovation and the emergence of new trends in ways that we hadn't even envisioned. So that was really fantastic. That made me very hopeful. That was one moment. I think that the energy and the exuberance of our speakers was fantastic, and the engagement really it was just so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that stood out to me, there are so many I could name, but when Jason Schiffman was speaking, there was something about his presentation that really lit me up because on the surface, he and I come from a totally different world, right? He's very brain, he's a doctor, and here I am, the spiritual guy. But everything he was sharing was coming back to the same conclusion, right? And I loved that with all four speakers and with you, Jeremy. We kept coming back to this theme about what is really at the root of addiction and mental health issues, and that is shame and disconnection. Mm-hmm. And how we as professionals, as people who have said yes to this calling, can help people actually reconnect with who and what they are. And that theme in itself was something that I heard in all four speakers, and of course you, Jeremy. So I really love that. I love where we can seemingly come from very different sort of walks of life or points of view, and then come to this place where we all merge and emerge. Mm-hmm. How about that?
I love it. Yeah, I had a similar response actually to everybody's presentations. Like, Jen, you spoke a lot about the trends and kind of like the stats that came with our field and COVID. And I didn't know any of that stuff. And so it was very illuminating for me. And then when Dr. Jason Schiffman was up here, I mean, Dallas and I were looking at each other like just because it was like, it was giving a voice to so many of the spiritual principles that we share and that we practice and, help facilitate for clients. But he was coming from a place, like you said, TJ, with the science that backed it all up. And so what was coming through for me is like, wow, like being in Silicon Valley, sometimes we get the tech guys and the Google guys, and they're a little resistant to the spiritual stuff. But hearing Jason share about how those things are happening in the brain, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much hope for, some of the tougher cases I've had in my past, where it's like, yeah, we can bridge all these things together and get to the same place.
I think, as I had mentioned in my talk, it's the perfect confluence of science and spirit. Mm-hmm. And that was really prevalent today. Did you notice that? Mm-hmm. It was kind of a theme. We're merging the heart and the head. Mm-hmm. And it felt very powerful today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that we're talking about this because 13 or so years ago when I started in the field, I kind of came in as the fringe element, if you will. Like, I'm the spiritual guy, right? And it seems like every year it's this beautiful merging. I'm using the same word, but this merging of science and spirituality. And I actually think it would be really interesting for us to have that as one of our themes, maybe next fall.
Yep.
The merging of science and spirituality, because that's what excites me. That on both sides, actually, right? Because sometimes the spiritual side is like, oh, we don't need science, we have spirituality, and then obviously on the other side, it's like when we realize we come to very similar conclusions, and even more than the conclusions, we come to similar ways of how we can actually help people. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, this has been a great day filled with love and filled with connection. But is this going to make a difference in someone's life that maybe we never even get to meet? That, to me, is what's really exciting about Emergence. We don't know who was in this room that's going to be different with their client tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is really the intention and the purpose of what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think for me, another thing that's coming through is just how pivotal your team at Discovery Behavioral Health was to the entire event. We had so many staff from DBH that helped make it possible. And, you had told us, like, don't worry, guys, I got a team. And I was a little worried. I was like, dang, we need some, real go-getters out here. And they blew me away. I think the way the day went was very smooth. It was very exciting. And for me, in thinking about the spring, I feel this massive energy swelling. And everybody afterwards came up and they're like, oh my God, Jeremy, I cannot wait for the spring. Did you guys get that sense too?
I absolutely heard that. And frankly, our team all volunteered for the spring. They're super excited to do that. And, it's because of the passion they bring to this field. It's the passion that they bring to what they do on a daily basis. And so to be able to step into a greater expression of that work through Emergence and in partnership with you two, what's not to love? They were pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So I think in closing, I'd like to look to our conference in the spring, and let's pick maybe one or two things that we're the most excited about for our next Emergence.
Well, I want to speak to something because Jen and I have had this conversation that's been ongoing, and that is, I'm going to speak about it first, like sort of surface level. Surface level is I want to see more women in higher levels of leadership in our field. So just point blank, I think it's really important for us to create a conversation around how can we be better at that? What wants to emerge in terms of female leadership? But to be more authentic and I guess more vulnerable around it, I think the growing up, being someone, I think if I grew up today, I probably as a little kid would have probably had a very different label like gender nonconforming, because I had this balance of masculine and feminine. And to tell you the truth, it was almost beaten out of me. Like, you need to be strong, you need to be brave, you need to be a man. And there was a big part of myself that I buried, right? And that was that feminine aspect, right? And we all, of course, I know that all genders have all these different attributes, but when we think about sort of the classic divine feminine qualities, it's intuition, it's openness, it's collaboration, it's consideration. And then, sort of what we've been taught, many of us as men, is like dominate, crush, make it happen, force it. And I think that paradigm for me, there's some trauma around that, right? Because I was really told, don't act like a girl, don't talk like a girl, don't throw like a girl, right? So early in my life, strangely enough, I experienced misogyny firsthand, and I was like, oh, I better not be like this, right? And so I did embrace that male, like dominant kind of energy, and I have learned that that's not everything we need in leadership. And so I'm really excited, whether we're in a male or a female body or non-binary body, that we can recognize the importance of all of it and how we integrate that and bring the divine feminine into the conversation. That was a very long answer, but I felt called to say that because it's more than, it is about, elevating female leaders, but I think there's something even deeper going on spiritually in our culture right now, asking the question, how can we be part of facilitating what is actually wanting to emerge?
I love listening to you describe this because it really is a whole different lens for the Spring Emergence Conference. As we talk about empowered feminine leadership, you really bring this different perspective to it. And as you were speaking, what I was reflecting on as a woman who has been described as driven, that's a masculine quality. And that has not always been seen as attractive in a woman like myself. And so that isn't necessarily how we're expected to show up. And so maybe it's my inner masculine coming forward that allows me to strive forward and be competitive and to be driven to help empower other women into leadership. And I just want to note that those qualities aren't necessary for strong feminine leadership. Right. However, it's those old systems of categorizing us that, we need to expose and explore. And I think that the Spring Emergence Conference is going to give us a great platform to do that with so many powerful women that we're talking about having speak, powerful men speaking, looking forward to all perspectives on this. And, just to kind of cap that off, I'm sitting next to my male boss and we're talking about this spring conference. And it was really interesting because what I wanted to do was reach over to him and say, thank you for your leadership and allowing me to thrive as the leader that I am. Mm-hmm. Thanks for showing me the path forward. Thanks for always believing in my leadership. Thanks for giving me the platform to be the leader that I am today. Mm-hmm. Taking absolutely nothing away from the men who are leading our industry, just making space for the women who are coming next.
Well, what I love about this is we are clearly going to be talking a lot more than just what someone might think we're going to be talking about. Yes. There's going to be multiple layers to this. And one of the things I love about collaborating with both of you, it's really easy, I think, sometimes to be in a conversation that almost feels like what we're against or what we want to change. What I love and appreciate about both of you is we're going to talk about what we want to see emerge and what we stand for. Mm-hmm. So it's not about like this is bad and we want to do this because it's better. It's like, let's look at what's wanting to emerge and look at the qualities that we all bring. And gender expression and all its layers is such a big topic. I'm just really grateful and excited. And me too. More so actually hearing Jen talk right now than even I realized. So,
and I feel exactly the same in talking to both of you. I feel really hyped up about the spring conference. The whole concept of emergence at its heart is about bringing this forward, right? What do we want to talk about openly and in community, and how do we want to share this information? And I think that is, the heart of collaboration, and that's what we're doing with this conference. So it feels very powerful.
Absolutely. And I think, just to echo what both of you said, I think my excitement around the spring is both to explore these topics from a really nuanced position where we can just be curious. We're not trying to define or be rigid or kind of absolute, but rather just be really curious about it. And for me, growing up in the treatment world from 22 until now, I've had nothing but female management. Every supervisor I've had has been a woman. And so when I started going to networking events and getting out into the field, I was like, oh my God, there are so many women. This is amazing, because I've always had a much better energetic connection with women than men. But like TJ pointed out today, that's true up to a certain point, and then it's not as true anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm excited to explore, especially with the speakers that we're going to have. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I think part of our plan is to have a couple panels, a panel each day where we can really get into conversation, and that's what I'm most excited about. So we have that to look forward to in the spring, and I think the energy that we created today is absolutely going to channel forward in May. So we'll see everybody then.
Yay.
Thank you both so much for taking the time to do this video. I know everybody's going to be really grateful to see it. And thank you so much for an amazing conference. And we'll see everybody in the spring.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.